Hi, everyone. Zach here. Thanks for joining me. I'm grateful to be here and I'm grateful you're listening. So let's jump into episode 2, which I've titled Why Fighting Your Addiction Keeps You Stuck. And I wanted to begin today with a short disclaimer as I begin to share a lot more information with you. Again, it's my passion and my mission to make recovery more accessible and available to people without the support or understanding. And at the same time, I accept that my genius is limited to my own personal experiences, and I do not claim to know it all. In fact, I'm the opposite end of that spectrum. One of the smartest things I ever said was the moment that I realized that I actually don't know shit. So I would encourage you to take everything I say with a grain of salt and take what you like. If it serves you, hold on to it and run with it, and love it and utilize it. If you don't like what I say, then just let it go and just keep the parts you do. I am not here to offend you. I am not here to hurt your feelings. I am not here to belittle you. I am here to, quite frankly, to do the opposite of all those things. Because I am your advocate, your brother, your sister, I'm your friend. I want to be your best friend. I want you to know and understand and be able to support yourself like the ways I've been taught and been able to do it for myself. And so, again, what I share is limited to my own experiences, and I've had a lot of them when it comes to addiction recovery. But I don't claim to know it all, and I don't claim to be the only answer or the only way. I, again, am just sharing, like a guide, my experiences. Like I will go down the path first and shining the light and hoping that you can walk behind me with a little less struggle, that you can see the path a little easier and the steps ahead of you that you need to take are a lot less confusing and easier for you to access so that you don't have to spend 20 years struggling like I did to find your recovery. So again, thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having an open heart. And I'm really grateful to be here and I'm really grateful you're here. So with today's episode, why fighting your addiction keeps you stuck, I think I'm going to start with the one of my most favorite universal principles. And you might imagine that the opposite of love is to fight. And I would say that love has no opposite, that love is all things. And so maybe the opposite of a fight would be kindness. And so when I say that we're going to stop fighting our addiction and we're going to start to learn to love ourselves instead, what I truly mean by love is support and understanding. And when you go to support and understand something, you don't come at it with weapons or closed fists or a closed heart. You come at it with an open heart and an open palm and an open hand and a willingness and a desire to be curious and to support and change. And that mindset is the exact mindset I'm going to ask you to come into your recovery work with. And more specifically, how you're going to look at yourself. We're not going to follow any old paradigms that suggest that you have a problem and that you need fixing. We're not going to believe that your addiction is what you may have been told, like me earlier, and it's a choice that you're making, and you just need to start making better choices. To be quite honest, that's not even a conversation we are going to have because no one wakes up and says, today I prefer to be addicted to something. That's my desire. I'd really desire addiction. So no one wakes up doing that. That's just, it's ridiculous. So no, you don't have a problem it's a situation that you need support and understanding in order to move through. I think of an analogy of like, it's because people you hear in the recovery world that you need to overcome your addiction because it's this bad thing that's just, you need to get rid of it and you need to get over it. But I'm here to tell you, you can't get over yourself. And your addiction is a disconnection from yourself. And so if you think that you can get over a disconnection of yourself through further disconnecting, you won't find your answers. You only further get disconnected and be more confused when it comes time to finding your way back home. So, as hard or challenging as a concept it may be in the beginning, just be kind and gentle to yourself. One of your greatest tools in recovery is going to be your own curiosity. The more you can be curious about what it is that's causing you to maybe act or be a certain way, the more you can see that as a strategy without blame or shame, but just a choice that the nervous system utilized because it created a result and the result was beneficial at the time. Therefore, it continued to produce thoughts to do that until it became obsolete, meaning that it no longer produced the same result or caused a larger side effect instead. So again, we're not going to get over ourselves. And the analogy I'm going to use is like, when I was a child, I think when most of us were really young, we had a teddy bear or a blanket or something that we clinged to in order to provide the feeling of safety. And eventually, what happened is later in life, we didn't get to the point where we grew up and overcame our blanket. We didn't overcome our teddy bear. What happened is that we learned to teach ourselves that we were safe without the blanket and without the teddy bear. In other words, we realized that we didn't need those things in order to regulate our own safety. And the moment that that awareness came into our consciousness is the moment that we then said, I no longer need this teddy bear. I no longer need this blanket. It doesn't necessarily have the same feeling for me when I pick it up anymore. It doesn't give me the same comfort when I hold on to it. And the reason is because that comfort and that safety was instilled another way. And so it's the same with our addictions. Your addiction is like a teddy bear or your blanket when you were younger. It's nothing more than a strategy to keep you safe. And as soon as we show your body or your nervous system other tools or ways in order to regulate and keep you safe, then it stops producing thoughts to reach for the drug in the first place, or it stops producing thoughts to reach for the teddy bear to comfort you, because that's what the drugs are doing. They too are comforting you, and they're comforting and keeping you safe internally from a pain or a wound that has yet to be resolved. And there's a lot more discussion on that and what that wound looks like, and many, many episodes to come. But it's really important at the beginning, before we can move forward with those understandings, to realize that you have nothing to beat yourself up over. You have done nothing wrong. Your body merely adapted to the environment. And more importantly than what is going on and that you're not wrong, is that you're functioning exactly like you should be. And we don't want to take that away from you. We don't want to beat up the fact that you're functioning perfectly. We just want to give your body different options to create that function in a more sustainable and healthy way. So, in episode 1, I shared the universal principle that wherever you apply a force, you can expect an equal and opposite counterforce. Now, this is a known universal law. It's not Zach's preference. It's just how it works. Therefore, fighting is a force. And if you fight something, you can expect an equal and opposite counterfight. That's why the people that go out in the world looking for fights, they find them. They get them every time. And the people that go out avoiding them, they avoid them. So if you try to apply a force to your addiction, in other words, a behavioral pattern of I will forcefully stop myself from picking up this drug every day by using will, you can do that over and over. And what you'll find is the battle turns into a war. And it turns into a war because each time you attempt to utilize willpower over your body's adaptive response to provide safety by reaching for the drug, you're really creating an inner conflict. On the one unconscious level, your body says, I'm not safe and I need to regulate. So we need safety, and I'll perform whatever's necessary to create safety because I prioritize safety first. And then on the other hand, consciously, you're saying, without being aware of those things, you're saying, well, I need to stop doing this through my will or my force because that will make me better. And what you're really doing when we do that, what I did for years and years and years and years, is I only further continued the cycle of addiction and got deeper and deeper into it, because it becomes a revolving door where if I beat myself up for not using my will and then my will fails, then I need to try harder, which means I need to fight harder. And if you fight harder, you're going to find even bigger fight and it'll fight you back even more. And so I know there's got to be some people like myself listening to this that spent years, and maybe you're just getting into it. So you're blessed to hear this now. But if you try to use your willpower to stop your addiction, it's a catch-22 and you won't go anywhere. It's like trying to go forward, but you put the car into the reverse gear. You'll never go forward. You can't. It's not that you're not capable of going forward. The car can as soon as it's put into drive. And you can move out of your addiction too, but you have to start moving into the direction that supports moving out of your addiction versus driving you deeper into it. And fighting will always drive you deeper into it. Shame and blame will always drive you deeper into it. We'll talk more on other episodes about your emotions, but just quickly, I want you to understand that why we create blame as a human being, objectively speaking, and shame is it's an emotion to prevent us from taking action or towards the same thing that we didn't like the result. So we feel this great shame within us so that next time the scenario presents itself, we will not take the same decision that created the experience we did not like. In other words, the one that created a pain. And so we are wired that way. It's not a conscious choice. It's a subconscious program. So the blame and the shame isn't even, it's just a tool itself. And so when you recognize that your body is trying to use the tool of blame and shame, quickly remember what I'm telling you here, that that's just a tool trying to regulate you, and it too isn't really serving you. So stop utilizing blame or shame against yourself, because that's just a fight. Instead, support and understand yourself. Know that your blame and your shame is just a tool to prevent you from doing the same thing you once did before, but to do it differently. And that you already know that those drugs aren't serving you, but more importantly, you know that they're also managing something, because when you stop, that problem gets larger. So with that, we can really begin. This sets the stage for recovery. Whenever you can stop looking at yourself like a problem, understand that it's merely an adaptation, and that the adaptation needs a new support and understanding in order to move forward and out of it. And that's what that's my whole mission and goal here is to give that to you. So yeah, let's stop the war with ourselves. Let's start supporting and understanding and, dare I say, love ourselves, and release that blame and that shame. And I remember whenever I was in my addiction and I got to the point where I did that. Now, for me, this was years and years and years. I don't know exactly where it was, but say like 10 years in, probably. And I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired and of everybody looking at me like I was a problem when all I was trying to do was medicate a pain that was growing larger and larger inside of me that no one wanted to acknowledge or accept whenever I spoke of it. And if I did speak of it, I was made to feel less than because of it. And I'm here to tell you, brothers and sisters, I hear you, I see you, and that pain is real. And that pain is what we're here to resolve, because that pain is speaking. It's a part of you that's speaking towards a wounded aspect of yourself. And believe it or not, that addiction was merely a tool to help support that wounded aspect of yourself. And whenever we stop fighting and we learn to support differently, because again, that tool is now obsolete, then the pain lessens. And the more we support it and the more it lessens, the more we recover. This is literally recovery. And it isn't in an instant, and it doesn't happen overnight. And it doesn't also have to be a lifetime. But each time we take that step into reminding and bringing back safety within ourselves and teaching ourselves different tools in order to regulate, then we come back to inner peace. We come back to clarity. We have peace of mind, and we're not flooded with thoughts that scream for us to use this drug or substance or experience in order to feel better in this moment. And that's recovery. And the more we can recover in those situations, the more we get to the point where our life is full and available and full of things we love as opposed to things we fight. And it just gets better and better. But I want to talk about the point where I had accepted the the drugs as a tool, or the experiences I was doing. They were tools to help relieve a pain, but I didn't know how or why they were working. And I stayed in this limbo for years. So at this point, I basically have zero friends. My parents everybody has cut me off from my life. No one will speak to me because I am just this outrageous problem. And so now I'm at a position where it's fine, whatever. You guys can look at me as if I'm a problem. What I know in my heart is that I'm just trying to feel okay. And each time I take these different substances, some of them make me feel okay and others don't. And so I don't take the ones that don't, I take the ones that make me feel okay. And I don't want to take them. I, in fact, take as little as possible to be able to have the feeling of normalcy without the side effects, the stress, the overwhelm, the urge, the triggers. Just enough to not have, essentially, to have the edge off. And I didn't want to. Like, I'd even wean off if one tool worked really well, say a type of opiate or Oxycontin, but I was heavily addicted and I was taking too much, I would wean off and go to something different, like a Percocet or something that was not the same chemical, so that my body could adjust and move on to something else, so that I wouldn't, because it would just continue to get worse with that one. So what I mean by that is I don't suggest anybody to do that. I just mean that it was obvious that I was bouncing back and forth from different medicines, different things that were making me feel normal inside. And at the same time, I couldn't use too much of this medicine because I was considered an addict and a problem. And if someone like me used it, then my whole life fell apart. And it's such bullshit. And we need to just let drugs off the hook right here and now, because we say drugs are medicine, but either way, both of them have nothing to do with someone being an addict or not. The drugs are innocent. They have nothing to do with it. It's like a knife. You could pick up a knife and murder somebody, and you'd say, knives are horrible. Or you could pick up a knife and cut your steak for dinner, in which you say, knives are great and they're perfect for utility and they're a helpful tool. So on one perspective, it's murder and horrible, and on another perspective, it's helpful. Well, I'll tell you the truth. The knife is neither a murderer or very helpful. The knife is a knife. It's an object and it has nothing to do with good or bad, right or wrong. It just is what it is. Human beings, these things called meaning makers, we pick up that knife and we make meaning out of it. Now, to some people, that meaning is a negative and a bad thing, and to some people, it's a positive thing. But at the end of the day, either way, it's still just a knife. It's just a thing. It's not good or bad. Well, same thing with drugs. Let's let them off the hook, because the drugs, they're not bad. They're also not good. They're just drugs, and all of them served a purpose. I'll give you an example of the first time I tried Xanax. I was having a great day. I had very little stress. It was already riding a natural high from the things that were occurring in my life at that moment. Then the person that gave it to me, and it made me super sick, couldn't remember, all sorts of problems, right? Why? Because I didn't have an anxiety at that time whenever I took it. So if you take an anxiety pill when you don't have anxiety, it actually causes you to have anxiety versus getting rid of it. And so I didn't like it. And I would say, I would never touch Xanax. That drug is horrible and it doesn't work for me. Well, fast forward 2 years. Now I'm in prison and I am stressed out of my mind. I'm afraid for my life. I think I'm going to get raped and murdered every day I exist. I don't even think I'll be able to eat the food that I'm being served because it's being stolen from me and I'm being pimped. And so I'd be stressed and scared for my life. And then someone handed me that same milligram dosage of that Xanax. And what immediately happened is it felt like liquid gold in my body. I went from feeling completely stressed and sweating and overwhelmed to feeling cool, calm, and collected. And in that moment, I said, wow, I love me some Xanax. And for that next 2 years, I was so addicted to Xanax. And I was taking 20 milligrams by noon. In fact, if I didn't have 4 bars in me when I woke up, I would start to withdraw. So my point being is that the very same drug, medicine, tool, whatever you want to call it, that I took that once made me sick, then I took a different time and then helped me, has nothing to do with being right, wrong, good, or bad. It just is what it is. It was my perception when I took it, the setting, all of those things are what mattered more and what actually created the experience in which I had. So let's just let the drugs off the hook. They're not a problem. They're not good either. They're just drugs. And to be honest, they don't really have much to do with this situation other than being the tool that continues to get activated. So, I do want to mention that there was a part of me at this point in time, and maybe that's the same for you as well, where I felt really kind of broken inside. And it wasn't the word I used, but I was really upset with myself because I had always known that there was nothing really wrong with me, that these experiences aren't something I chose, but, like to me at the time, I thought it was just how my life unfolded. And I was kind of just handed a bad set of keys or a bad script, and there's not much that I could have done about it. It was very much a victim mindset. But it still bothered me that I had to use these things in order to feel normal. And that part of me felt, like there was something wrong. Like I didn't work right. like everyone else because they didn't have these thoughts, they didn't have these urges. Why do I? So after years of this, and I mean years, a pattern basically began to emerge, and it was that what determined whether or not I was using these drugs or wanted to use the drugs wasn't Zach and his addiction. It was actually experiences. And maybe that's obvious to you. You're like, yeah, fuck yeah, Zach, I drink because of my partnership, and it's a unhealthy partnership, and I go home to it and it stresses me out and I drink every day. More obvious for some than others, but the point being is that you're not broken, you haven't done anything wrong, and it all can be turned around. It's not there forever. So, another example I want to give you about how drugs aren't the problem, and then I think we'll end up with this one today, is that, and this is just the proof, to give you actual proof that the drugs aren't the problem, is that you can stop taking the drugs today, or stop doing the experience today, or stop drinking today. But the effects will get worse and worse and worse, which means that it's not the drug that's causing the bad effects. There's something else going on. And when it comes to addiction recovery, you can work with the behavior and the willpower and those effects all day long. But until you get to the root, to the initial cause or the wound that's creating the pain, you will never recover from addiction truly. You can stop doing the drugs for years, which I even did that. And what I found myself was in a hell. It was a place that was worse than when I was using the drugs, because at least the drugs helped to medicate me. And in this hell, I was, I'm so strong and so powerful. I can use my will to manage my addiction, and I'll never use again just through willpower. Well, that was great for a year, and all year long I was like, fuck, why am I constantly being pulled? I want to do this, but no, be strong, Zach, be strong. You can do it. Society tells you to be strong. You can do it. You're the man. And so I kept and I kept and I kept and I kept. And what happens is the stress continued to build and continued to build and continued to build because that wound hasn't been addressed. And until that wound is addressed, those stresses will just continue to build, and the problems will continue to mount, and the experiences will continue to come. And it's only further proof that the drugs aren't the issue, that there's something underlying this that's pulling us one direction or another. And so recovery begins when we stop fighting ourselves and we start understanding and supporting the parts of ourselves that needed that addiction in the first place. When we start addressing that core wound, that initial wound that has perpetuated and made this addiction into what it is today. That wound is the core of your addiction. And until it is addressed, the addiction will always stay present. Now, it's not a problem. It's just like any time you got wounded, you can make a big deal out of it if you want. I'm not here to stop you. You, like a kid who scrapes his knee, can cry. Why? The crying is to bring comfort and console. You can cry about this as long as you want, because I did. I was a victim about my addiction and the path that got handed to me and all the shit parents I had versus the others and blah, blah, blah. But I'm here to tell you that that's only continuing that cycle and going downwards. And the fight only continues to create more fighting. So let's not do that anymore, guys. Let's not do that. And instead, let's learn to love ourselves. Let's learn to support and understand the parts of ourselves that are wounded, that needs our love and our understanding. If you saw someone on the side of the street that was bleeding out from an injury when they just tried to cross the street and some car hit and ran, and they were just sitting there with the leg dangling, bleeding, and you pulled over your car, did you get out and smack them around some more? No. innately, you would get out and you would comfort and support and help that person with everything you could muster. Well, I need you to take a moment and step back from your addiction. Maybe this is the first time in your life you're going to do it, but I want you to step back, and I want you, like a fly on the wall, to look over your life right here and now, up into this moment, and notice that that person was just desperate for love. That person was hurting inside, and they don't need you to beat them up anymore. Instead, they need you to turn and give them a helping hand. They need your hand palm out, heart open, and to be curious and willing to give love and support. Because I promise you, when you do that for yourself, just like that person on the side of the road, you're going to feel better. And that better is recovery, that is healing. And you can give that to yourself. All right, I love you. I bless you, and I thank you for listening. Until next time.